It's not just about money. The Bible even says where your treasure, your heart is, right? So like where you put your treasure, it does prove that you're investing, and actions follow that, and transformation follows action. It just does. And so there's something about, because that is the resource of this world, right? We have that echelon on purpose. We make it as affordable as possible with the staff that we hire and all the time that it takes to run the company, right? We make it as affordable as possible. We also know that when there's a level of intentionality when it comes to putting your hard-earned treasure towards something, first of all, we believe that we're good ground, and when you're sowing into good ground, that you can pray over that and you can say, God, I believe that this is going to reap a harvest in my life. Hey everyone, Coach Megan here, and this episode we're going to be talking about when is the right time to actually hire a coach. This is such an important question because we have thousands of you guys who listen to this podcast every single week, and that ranges from people who have never done a pageant before and people who are pageant veterans who have placed in the top 15, top 5, top 10 several times and are really looking to clinch that win this year. By the way, if you guys are watching on our YouTube, you can see that finally my office renovation is pretty much done. I'm just putting together a few things over the weekend, but you can see the magical, wonderful powerhouse pink wall. And for our Quest for the Crown challenge that's coming up here in just a few weeks at the time that you guys are listening to this, maybe even next week, you guys will get to see this wall in action, hopefully with the full set. It was several $1,000s, and it was, I wouldn't say highly recommended, but she was highly well known, right? And God bless her. I think she had the right intentions, but I kind of got caught between, I think, when she was scaling a lot of her company, and it was quite literally the worst program ever. Is the ability to be somebody that whenever you're in a room, you want to be the person asking questions even more than you are talking. And I'll just kind of share about this in my own life. And this is regardless of how smart you are. This is regardless of how many years you've been doing pageants, or if you're in school, or if you're looking for a mentor for your job, et cetera, even a spiritual mentor, right? So I want to talk about how exponential too with that, when you adopt that mindset, that your growth can happen. So many of you guys have heard the story of when I was 23, when I started Powerhouse Pageantry. Actually, I think I was 23, because 21 to 22, I was Miss Nebraska, and then I went back to Belmont College for a year, and I came back, and when I was working at that coffee shop, many of you guys have heard, I started Powerhouse Pageantry, right? And shortly after, I hired my first mentor. It was several $1,000s, and it was, I wouldn't say highly recommended, but she was highly well known, right? And God bless her. I think she had the right intentions, but I kind of got caught between, I think, when she was scaling a lot of her company, and it was quite literally the worst program ever. And so with that, it was really difficult because on one behalf, as a student, I didn't know the right questions to ask because I was so young. And the program didn't really facilitate access to her as the coach, or even other coaches, in a way that there was a clear path to growth. But on the other side of things too, I was so young and naive, like I didn't even know how to participate at the fullest level. So since then, even though that was a quote waste of money, I learned a lot, and I learned a lot about myself and what I both expected in a mentor and a coach in the future. And it also really is why I try to be as transparent and authentic as possible in my coaching, even if you're working with one of our powerhouse coaches rather than myself individually, or these different things. So I don't really do individual one-on-one coaching anymore because I just can't with so many clients. But the integrity and the intention of how I train everybody on my team, and getting access to all my modules, and really taking as much of my brain as I possibly can and putting it, into easy access portals for my clients is really important, because that first program that I was in was so terrible, right? So in years since after that, I built a lot of Powerhouse Pageantry on my own. And many of you guys might have started your pageant journey on your own, or again, a leadership journey of whatever kind. Maybe you're running for sorority president, or maybe you are looking to intern in the summers to try and get a job after college. Or maybe you're already in your career and you just want to climb up the corporate ladder or start a business or whatever. I can't tell you how much, I spent probably 4 or 5 years doing a lot of things on my own. Then every time after that, when I hired a coach, which I've had 3 or 4 significant coaches in my life since then in the past 5 or 6 years, every single time there has been a massively significant jump. And in addition to that, from a business perspective, since business has really been my focus in my 20s of where where I was and where I wanted to get to, I always knew I wanted to get married later. And I always knew I wanted to have children later. I wanted to get to a certain place in my identity and in my career to really figure out who I was through a lot of that in my 20s. And then obviously competing in pageants and kind of gaining significance in that way and that fulfillment of that competition and ultimately winning. That was always my vision and my plan, right? But along that journey, that's why I hired those kinds of coaches. And then secondarily to that, as I was building my podcast, this one, as you guys have heard many guests that have been on here, and then my second podcast, and now my third with my husband coming out soon, by the way. Yeah, I surrounded myself as well with spiritual mentors and other people in the Christian world, which was very new to me, seeing female entrepreneurs in Christianity. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not an alien. This makes so much sense. And I watched how, as my capacity to, and also my vision, the more I got specific about who I was looking for and what I wanted to attract into my life, the more that God brought that into my life. Real Talk Kim, Pastor Nicole Crank, I got to meet Lisa Bevere. I've gotten to meet just all these absolutely incredible, Taylor Madu. Let's see, who else has been there? So many just incredible, incredible women. Lisa Harper, that I now call friends, in my life, many of them, and some of them are even mentors. And so part of that, a lot of that started with me even feeling worthy enough to put myself in the rooms where those things are happening and where those conversations are being held. And if we carry around the sense of unworthiness or the sense of like, I already know it all, you just simply aren't going to get in those rooms, because those people are not going to want to pour into you. They're not going to want to talk to you. But also the level of your identity and how you see yourself is the level that you will invest in and the level of people that you'll attract. Because I'm just being completely honest with you, when it comes to coaching and mentorship, the higher on the ladder that you go and the more time that you want to spend with a quote unquote influential person, you're going to have to pay for that time. Like, it's just the way that it is. And once I learned that, I got excited about giving. I got excited about investing, because I realized that they had something that I didn't. They had already accomplished, a 7-figure in a year business. They had already accomplished a 9-figure business. They already had the marriage that I wanted. They already had the character that I wanted. They already had the courage to spend thousands and thousands of dollars on ads that I didn't have yet, right? Or the tech knowledge that I had to build. And once I saw it from that perspective of like, okay, in the same way that I go to medical school to learn how to be a doctor, well, I should school myself and invest in the knowledge to figure out how to play this game at this level, right? And so, I was in a huge mastermind last year that taught me so much. But in addition to even just having the knowledge that that person could give me, also having access to that person that now is a colleague of mine, and we'll have a long-standing relationship even outside of the official mentorship capacity, is just so valuable. And all the friends that I met through that process, because all of those people invested to be in that room as well. And there's just something about, again, like attracting like, where, and it's not just about money, but the Bible even says where your treasure, your heart is, right? So like, where you put your treasure, it does prove that you're investing, and actions follow that, and transformation follows action. It just does. And so there's something about, because that is the resource of this world, right? That whether we invest $1, like how many of y'all know if I pay for a $200 steak, I'm going to expect it to be better than a $20 steak. Okay. You feel me? It's just the way that it is, right? So if I invest in this level of a mentor, I'm going to expect, and I'm going to show up in a different way to extract all the knowledge that I can, and to extract as much as I can from what they have, and the knowledge that they have, and the life that they have, and the et cetera, right? Maybe it's the spiritual fortitude that they have, or the marriage that they have, whatever you want your life to look like that person has. Typically you have to invest to get in that room. And it's not because like, oh, I'm not going to give you my time for free, but you also have to honor the gift. You also have to honor the fact that it took that person 10, 20, 30 years to get to where they're at, and all the time, talent, and treasure that person had to invest to get to where they are today. When you ask for something cheaper, or where you're just like, well, that person just, they think that they're above everybody because they force you to pay for their time. No, it's probably because they respect themselves. It's probably because they know that if they lowered that barrier, they're going to get a bunch of, I call them freebie seekers, for lack of a better term, people that just are always getting everything that's free, but they never put anything to action. And those just are not fun clients to work with, if I'm being honest, right? And I know this because I've been in the game for 10 years. And I know this too, that the people who pay attention. why we have the academy at the price that we do, as well as the functionality that we do, is because we get amazing clients that their life is different after a year of working with us, with our Powerhouse Club, with whatever level that you end up investing in us, right? And we have that echelon on purpose. We make it as affordable as possible to be able to, with the staff that we hire and all the time that it takes to run the company, right? We make it as affordable as possible. We also know that when there's a level of intentionality when it comes to putting your hard-earned treasure towards something, first of all, we believe that we're good ground. And when you're sowing into good ground, that you can pray over that and you can say, God, I believe that this is going to reap a harvest in my life. And on a practical level too, again, like from my business coaches, when I sow into that, I believe that I'm going to reap the knowledge that they have just by being around them and seeing how they talk and seeing how they walk and seeing how they treat their spouse. Like, I learned more in this last mastermind, even just by catching things, by being around and doing Q&As and just asking my mentor questions, having, access to him for questions was invaluable, and he's going to be a billionaire in the next 10 years, right? And not that it's all about money, but because God's put a call on my life to be an entrepreneur, I want to be around people who my problems are so incredibly easy and small to them, not so they can make me feel bad about where I am, but because they could solve these problems in their sleep. They're like, just do this, right? And that's how it works with us in pageantry, right? Any problem that any of my clients could go through, like, just quite frankly, I've been through it and I've done it a million times. So I know exactly what to do in literally every situation. Like, there's just really not a scenario that we haven't come across now with 20,000 hours in this field in over 10 years, right? So I just wanted to encourage you guys in that and describe why the value of coaching is so important and how I practice what I preach in my own life. Even our coaches on staff practice what they preach in their own life, and how passionate we are about what can happen when you get to be in the room where it happens, right? Many of you guys have been on our 3-day challenges, and we have the Quest for the Crown Challenge coming up November 6th through 8th. So make sure that you click the link below and sign up for that and join the Facebook group. I'll let you guys in 10 days before the event. So if you're chilling in the waiting room right now, just know that that's on purpose so we can kind of blast everybody all together because we're running ads and doing all that. For that right now, we're going to give away over $500 in prizes, and I have 3 different freebies that you guys get that just for showing up to the challenge. And then obviously we'll have our big giant Black Friday deal at the end, which we're giving away over $18,000 worth of coaching for over 90% off. We've never done a deal like this before. So why should you come to that? Well, first of all, time. If I'm going to give you my time and I'm going to give you my time for free, you ain't gonna get that very much, just being honest. So show up live, get your pen and paper out and show up for 3 days. I'm making a commitment to you to show up with my full self. I'm finishing my slides actually later today, and I'm really excited about it because I love pouring into the masses as much as possible. It's my calling here on earth. And it's why I have a podcast. It's why we have over 200 episodes of real stuff, right? This isn't just fluffy crap, right? This isn't just like woo-woo 24/7. We've had people win national pageants by following our systems off our podcast, right? So now I'm inviting you to go deeper. Take this challenge, set aside an hour for 3 days. I'm going to do Q&A at the end of every single day and, see how you like me as a coach. You get 3 days to really figure that out and feel out if I'm the right fit for you and if you're the right fit for us. And if you're not, awesome. You leave with massive value at the very least, right? And at most, you get this huge breakthrough that's like the answer to your prayers and the reason why you haven't been winning your pageant in the past. We've had people that have done literally dozens of locals and have not been able to figure out what is wrong with them. And we just had somebody win after their second local this year, which is amazing. And they got first runner-up at their first local. Last year, we had somebody who did 13 locals. And when they started working with us, they won, I think, their first local, if not their second, and then placed top 10 at state. We don't know everything, I suppose. There are always things that we don't know, but I do like to open myself up 2 or 3 times a year when we do this. And you guys can get a complete just free test of what it feels like to be in one of our communities. And then at the very end, like I said, we're revealing our biggest, best Black Friday deal ever. We've never, it's a completely new deal, you guys. I'm throwing the kitchen sink at you, and more things are in this Black Friday deal that will totally transform your life and your pageant prep. Not just your pageant prep, by the way, like legit, it'll help your identity, it'll help your relationships, it'll help your spiritual life, it'll help everything. And I'm going to talk about a little bit more of that in depth in the next episode of the podcast here. But let's kind of land the plane. So when do you need a coach? We talked about why do you need a coach, but when do you need a coach? Now, I think everybody should have coaches. I think coaches should have coaches. But if you're brand new to pageants and you absolutely have never done a pageant and your expectation's not really to win this year, you're just kind of poking around, okay, then maybe you don't need a coach. Listen to every episode of our podcast and do your best, right? However, I will say that when you start to adopt a growth mindset, when you start to adopt, fall in love with personal development and seeing what God's called you to and seeing everything that you can be, I think that there's naturally this desire to want to be around more like-minded people who think and act the same way, right? Because we are designed to live in community with one another. So just something to think about. That's why we have the Powerhouse Club, which you guys can jump into at any time, to at least have community and have access to my coaches and I to be able to ask us questions and keep the ball moving, because there are just simply some things that you won't know, right? And we like to make ourselves available. So level 2 of that, and we're going to go over this as well. I call it the pageant winner roadmap. We're going to go over this on day 3 of the challenge. It's going to be so fun. Like I said, I'll tell you guys more about this in the podcast after this, which I'll record. But the second reason why, is it the right time to get a coach, is if you've been placing the same over and over and over. If this is your second year in pageantry, or if this is your 20th year in pageantry, whatever. But if you're placing the same over and over and over and over and over, it's much easier to get from like a C level to a B level than an A to an A plus. So if you've been placing top 15, or again, you've just been placing the same and you can't seem to jump to that next level, like, why would you keep doing everything the same? That's just silly, right? Like, if my shot was bad in basketball and I kept airballing it, would I just keep doing it on my own, or would I go watch some videos? No, I'd go watch some videos and I would emulate what's working, right? And I would ask for help, and I would mimic and follow other people that are doing it right. Like, minimally, I'd go to the gym and watch other people's elbow, right? And I'd be like, what am I doing wrong? Oh, I'm pushing like this, or I'm shooting with 2 hands, right? So I'm a basketball player, if you can't tell. So that's kind of level 2. And then level 3 is if you just really want to win this year and you're like, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired. I want to figure it out. And I also, like, part of what Coach Megan's talking to me about is, oh my gosh, could I be more? Like, I want to figure out what my purpose is. I want to figure out who I am. I want to be confident to know how to share my values and to own my success, to own the space that I want to take. And man, it just seems like Powerhouse girls, by the time they're done working with Megan, they just like know who they are. And I'm like, yeah, because they do, because we ask you tough questions, like a lot, in a good way, because we want you to not only have the skill set to win a pageant, but we want you to know who you are. Like, or else what are we doing, right? And also, it's very hard to win a pageant if you don't know who you are, right? Because then we're just like fabricating on the outside and hoping that we've memorized something that when push comes to shove shows up that day. Like, oh, hope the skill set shows up today. Hope I manipulated my morning routine perfectly enough to perform well, rather than it coming from the inside and it's just who you are. And then you just like show up and you just kill it every time, right? So if you really want to win now, maybe you have an aging out deadline, maybe you're engaged and you want to get married, maybe you're just done and you're finishing college and you just want to focus on your career. So like, you really need to know either way, if you're winning this year, you're kind of moving on. All those scenarios are completely fine. They're totally fine. But why do that alone? Like, just why? And then on top of that, we have really great strategies for helping you raise money and gain sponsorships and fundraise. And we're actually going to talk a lot about that on the 3-day challenge as well. And that PS is in our Black Friday deal, giving you all of our sales scripts and all those kinds of things. So minimally, just saying, like, if money is even remotely an issue for you, if you just apply our scripts, like, I promise you, whatever the Black Friday deal costs, which is not a lot, you'll make that money back. Like, obviously I cannot promise that to you, but just what I have seen in the past, I will say, is that people who follow our scripts are very successful in that way. Because, and again, life skills, who I want to become as a title holder, it takes courage to be a good title holder. It takes putting yourself out there. It takes owning your space and learning how to ask for things and really sell yourself to win, right? Like, you have to sell the judges on you and that you're the best. So these things that we have you do in preparation, even asking for sponsorships, creating proposals, things like that, that's a really valuable skill to have to also make the judges love you, right? So all that's in the Black Friday deal. So cool. That's really the 3 major reasons why you should have a coach. Click the link around here to join the Quest for the Crown Challenge. About 50 or 70 of you guys have already joined, and we're capping it at, I think, 300 or 400 this year, and ads are still rolling for 3 more weeks. So make sure that you get into that. As always, follow us on social media at Powerhouse Pageantry and drop a question in Messenger if you have something specific that you want us to do an episode about. And with that, you guys, love you all, and I will see you next week in next week's episode.